enabled a fleet solution. We're talking Africa Continental Free Trade here, Mr. President and Honorable Minister Panda. And South Africa has been key in actually crafting that. But where is the participation of women? So it's important that as we open this and as we sign up this discussion, as we open this comprehensive plan to support pre and post interventions for farmers. So I just put it on high level, but later I'll demonstrate what the whole initiative is about. Okay. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Sulemani, let's come back to you. 2018 State of the Nation address about how the process of industrialization must be underpinned by transformation. The Automotive Industry Transformation Fund is designed to support black participation with around 6 billion rand. How practically, though, does this work? I know you have given us some insight into that already. Let's just expand on that.
So I think 6 billion, if you're looking at as bigger of a sector of the automotive sector, 6 billion is certainly not enough as capital to be able to do that. But the sector is also having 60% of local content target by 2035. And that is coupled with the objective to move from a slow base of, because South Africa, if you have to compare it with the global sector, our production output is sitting at 0.6. There's an aspiration to get into 1% by 2035, and that is moving from a mere 600,000 vehicles to about 1.4 million vehicles by then. And for that to happen, there are a couple of things that we've got to solve for, and I think the business case comes to the fore. In order for us to fully industrialize and ensure that we are able to get the transformation we need, we've got to look at growing the sector on its own. So the business case is going to be a viable activity we have to look at. One of the things is to increase competitiveness, because if you compare South Africa against other markets to which we're fighting for volume with, they are basically having certain cost parity advantages than South Africa. For example, labor is no longer a positive outcome in South Africa. We've accelerated over a period of time and we've caught up with the rest of the world relatively so. So it's important that we begin to build a base of locally capable manufacturers who are South African black-owned entities to be able to champion having to produce components locally as a way of adding value into getting industrialization to the fore. So the AITF is well placed to working with the OEMs as well as the tier 1 multinational to deepen transformation and localization by funding tier 2, tier 3 opportunities in order for us to increase that competitiveness. And I think by doing so, we'll be able to fast track that particular objective.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Mteta, earlier on you were speaking about the work that you do as the NEF. One of the aims of Wikona and the reasons that we're here is that push for that 40% preferential procurement to ensure that people who are marginalized are brought into the economy in a sustainable manner. When it comes to rural and township funding, what programs is the NEF implementing to meet this objective? And then you can expand also on the funding that you were talking about and the steps you were talking about a little bit earlier on the panel.
Thank you, Program Director. So the NEF established the Women Empowerment Fund in 2014, right? So I said that as an organization, we have already disbursed about 12.8 billion and 40 billion, 40% of that 12 billion has actually gone towards supporting black-owned, black women-owned enterprises. So we start from 250,000 rands and we go all the way up to about 75 million. So if you talk about procurement opportunities, remember that when black women-owned enterprises will come to us, that would mean that they would have received a procurement opportunity with Eskom or Transnet or a government department. So what the NEF has done, we have a procurement finance product, because we realize that as and when these enterprises will be getting those opportunities from various players, within the South African economy, that you needed to have an entity that would be able to respond directly to that financing need. So we do have a procurement product. So the way we fund, we provide loan financing. We do take a little bit of equity sometimes. We provide mezzanine instruments and prefs depending on the risk mitigation, strategies that we'll be looking at in respect of that particular entity that we will be looking at. Just to give you examples of the initiatives, for instance, in the rural areas, we have the Land Restitution Act in South Africa, which has now given access, to the land, especially for the rural economies. But the problem with the rural women is that they cannot conceptualize a business plan. They can't give you the financial projections or the cash flow projections that you'd want to see in order to actually fund that particular product. So what the NEF does is to provide non-financial support, especially to the township and rural women. A case in point, for instance, something that we are very, very proud of as the NEF is a community that is based in KZN. They had access to the land. They didn't know what to do with this piece of land. My young engineers, my young investment professionals, when they realized that there was an opportunity for this rural community to actually build a 4-star hotel. So if you go to Jozini in KZN, it's a world-class facility in the middle of nowhere. And the reason why we set it up there is because of its close proximity to a lake. There is a lake there, so there were people who were sleeping in their tents, and they had no accommodation. But I also saw some of the politicians, when they are doing their political work, when they have nowhere to go. I also saw the president visited one of our facilities, and those facilities are actually proudly owned by black women. We like to fund women, by the way, because they are very diligent when it comes to the management of their financial affairs. They don't take the money out of the company, go buy fancy, I won't say fancy, and they actually service their debt on time. Our best performing portfolio is actually owned by women. We have a portfolio of investments that we have within the petroleum industry. We're doing it in partnership with the likes of your engine, all the oil majors in South Africa. So that opportunity is giving black women to actually own petrol stations. So these petrol stations, they are all over the country, 140 of them. So what the BPs and the engines of this world would do, they give us a little bit of grant funding. So the 40%, so if you are looking at a 10 million rand transaction, the 40% will come in as a grant portion. So we approached all the CEOs of these oil majors to say, you don't have capacity to actually access the townships and rural economies. So everywhere you go, you'll actually see them because they are there and they are owned by women. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dlamini, in order to facilitate the participation of certain suppliers in your supply chain, Massmart has something called a small supply program. What does that do? And just speak to us about the focus there in particular of women.
Thank you very much, Nzinga, for that question. We have a supply development fund which is dedicated to supporting small and medium enterprise suppliers into our supply chain. And we have a strong bias towards supporting female-owned businesses. Some of the suppliers that I mentioned who contributed to the 8.5 billion rand achievement of last year actually came through that program. What do we do and how do we support them? We provide funding. So we know that funding was mentioned earlier on as one of the challenges. So we like focusing on solutions, not problems. So we set it up so that we could solve for the funding issue. And then secondly, we also help, like Mrs. Mteta was saying, help them with business plans, help them with factory layouts, machine requirements, help them with production efficiencies. We have a team of industrial engineers that are dedicated at helping and hand-holding our suppliers to be able to produce at the right quality, right quantity, and at the price points that enable them to be competitive, enable them to support, to supply our stores in South Africa. What we also do with our suppliers in South Africa, because we're part of Walmart, we also help some of them to be able to export their products.
Wow.
We've had some successes where local suppliers have managed to penetrate the global Walmart supply chain. And for me, as chair of the company, that is something that I'm passionate about personally. And we, as an organization, we are also working very much in a joint up way to enable that. We have brought in buyers from Walmart from the USA who have met with local suppliers, and in the process of interacting with them, some of them have been signed up to supply stores in the United States. So I think for us, supplier development is not just an end in itself, that we focus on SMEs. The key exam question is, how do we turn an SME into a multinational company? Massmart itself was started by Mark Lambetti. He bought a few stores, and today it's a retail giant. Amongst the suppliers that are small today, how do they become Massmart tomorrow? Players. And I believe that we can enable them to be able to attain that.
Okay, powerful. I think that deserves a round of applause. Ms. Mutsaga, we're hearing from industry, but as somebody who is a supplier, just talk to us about the challenges that you have encountered and also how you get around them, and what advice you would give to women entrepreneurs in the room who may face the same challenges.
Thank you. My input will, yes, mainly about myself as a supplier, but also mainly about myself with leadership and decision-making roles in the sector as a female. I want us to be aware of something. When we look at, particularly for women in rural areas, there's a strong sense of business acumen there. Ours is to appreciate that they are expected to thrive on the policies that were designed to totally exclude them. So I want us, particularly as black females, we must be very conscious of that. Let's not exclude them, for instance, because they don't have your formal kind of business framework that is expected. But what we should do, if I'm sitting on a DFI and I can see, one, from the agricultural point of view, there's a critical enabler, land, particularly for those that have benefited under the land restitution program, because that is a great stride in as far as bringing back the land. But if I'm sitting there, I see there's land, there's water, you cannot disqualify that community. Thank you. Who has authority is to write an email. Some of the decision makings are not even depending on the parliament. They are depending on the board that are being employed under the transformation agenda to have a clear interpretation and common understanding of what it means to develop black people. And that sometimes I find it difficult because I see some of us are so aloof. We are so out of touch with the realities of the ground. We have become so comfortable in the borrowed luxury. We have become so ignorant of what it means. And it's painful. It's painful in the sense that the export market is blooming. Black people are not there. This country prides itself with the agriculture that is always contributing to the GDP of the country, but without black people, Mr. President. And with all due respect, I'm not saying you're doing enough, but at policy level you've tried. But the issue is nominating and appointing people at these positions who chooses to be ignorant about now the plight of the black people and women in particular. And I must say, to the women, particularly in leadership, it is so annoying to convince another black woman about the plight of women in South Africa. Because now we think that we have made it because we're in these positions of power. myself being a leader in a certain position, that's not transformation, but is a door to make sure that the women on the ground can look up to us and we deliver the mandate of women. We can't be, and I'll still come back to being a supplier. We can't be sitting and decorating and be blown pots of these boardrooms. It's not going to happen. And it's painful because I've been at the end of being ignored by people with authority, by people with power, because I had no known surname. I was not coming from certain corridors. So it's important that we understand that as we rise, we are so conscious and deliberate in transforming the sector through inclusive agriculture. So that's my appeal. And now, as a supplier to the retail, one of the conversations that we had, because I was supplying Pick and Pay, one of the conversations that we had was that, yeah, buyers have got their own mindset, they will decide. Buyers must know that this is South Africa. Yes. You need to be mindful of the fact that we are in the system of opening up the sector. Massmart, I've tried. They're not going to clap it. Massmart, I've tried. But the issue here is trying to impose a framework that was there to exclude us. Look, let's have a way of relaxing, right? The retail and the suppliers and the buyers must find a way of relaxing the qualifying criteria so as the DFIs. That D means development. So we still need to have a very sincere discussion of what it means to develop South Africa, black women South Africans, because that absent of that interpretation will keep on talking with no tangible outcomes. So it's important, and it's really my appeal. We have to push and transform. Now, from the suppliers, I'll make the examples that I can relate to. And this was part of the discussions that we had as well, that as an entrepreneur, you need to go out and reach out to them. Right? I'm quickly going to wrap up, Program Director. But we need to imagine a child from Mkanduli, from Engahoni, who went to the rural areas. They only see, and I'm going to say it, a white person on TV. Now he owns a franchise stores, whether it's Pick and Pay and retail in that rural area. And they're expected to walk in and look for an opportunity to supply. That is not going to be possible. So as we discuss these ways of making sure that there's a strong sense of entrepreneurship, we need not to look at it from a privileged point of view. You need to be able to unleash that entrepreneurship from that rural woman. Thank you.
I think there might need to be another side conversation that may happen when we get off stage. As we wrap up our discussion, though, I'd like to please ask each of our participants, starting from you, Mr. Dlamini, just speak to us about what commitments you can make towards the vision of Wikona, what's taking place today. What commitments can you make to us, and what are your plans for the future?
That's a great question, and building up from the remarks that have just been eloquently made, I think we continue to be committed to work with Wikona in as far as access to our supply chain is concerned. We realized last year we made a commitment that actually the buying process is a challenge, is the elephant in the room. We committed last year, Mr. President, to set up a dedicated, user-friendly supplier liaison office. We set up that office, and we are going to continue to go on and see how efficient it is in terms of removing the barriers that suppliers have to access our supply chain. We want to democratize our supply chain to be more accessible to women suppliers. We want them to be our partners, and indeed they are our partners already. We source billions of rands from them, but there is more work to be done. There are a lot of constraints in terms of how the buying process works. We need to educate our buyers. We need to get them to understand the imperatives of transformation, and we are doing that already at the local level, but also we have the support of our global shareholder, Walmart, who is in the process of buying 100% of the business now. So we are going to be on the side of Wikona going forward even after we delist from the stock exchange, as we may, as part of the transaction that Walmart is busy with, which I'm pleased, Mr. President, to say it's actually a resounding vote of confidence on South Africa as an investment destination that Walmart is committing to invest 100% and own 100% of Massmart.
Ms. Mutsaha, your wrap-up remarks and any commitments you can make to Wikona.
I think I should be the last because mine will include a video. Or do I do it now?
Perhaps we can go to, if we can just wrap, you leave your comments and then perhaps we can
Thanks,
sort it out
Director.
later.
Look, these opportunities we really welcome them and appreciate the retail, particularly Massmart. But I want to propose that as well. We look at how your enterprise development is structured. If there's an existing strategy, because usually it's quite broad. So it needs to be informed by baseline, right? Because once you have all these opportunities and we still cannot meet them, it means that there's a serious dialogue that needs to take place immediately from the development point of view so that we know how best to develop them so that they can participate on the program. And then the funding model becomes key, NEF. It becomes key. Once there's a market that is available, for me, I feel the rest should be easy and we should make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Allow me to just extend a little bit, and I'm mindful of time. With regards to the petrol station business you're looking to fund, perhaps there's also a low-hanging fruit because the sector currently is looking into the implementation of the public electric charging infrastructure. And perhaps there's good synergy in us having to look at partnering together in solving that problem together so that we can, as the product shift, we are able to also put in an element of new energy vehicle into that particular discussion. So I see that as a low-hanging fruit that we need to collaborate on, definitely. Perhaps we can take that offline. The AITF has made a commitment through Women in Auto, which is championed by Wikona and other industry stakeholders like NACAM, NAMSA, NADA, AIDC, and also IDC. We have listened to the request that has been made through that forum in that it's important that we do a pipeline development for women. So we are going to enroll a cohort of 50 women into an automotive sector program already approved and ensure that we are able to develop that pipeline specifically so that we can have dealer principals coming out of that particular cohort, as well as some of them obviously going on to be entrepreneurs and owning the dealership network and so on, to which the AITF has committed to funding once we get to that particular period. So that will definitely be happening in the next financial year. The other thing is there is a call for a management development program to which we've partnered with one of the institutions, and NAMSA is championing that with TUT, where we are also going to be ensuring that we are upskilling women in order that they gain entry into some of the managerial positions within the automotive sector. I'll park it there for now, Chair.
Thank you very much. Very appreciated.
Thank you, Program Director. So I'll make reference to a statement that was in the State of the Nation address that was made by the President when he talks about the need to develop a capable state. I don't think we have really unpacked it to try and understand the deep meaning of what the President is referring to. So the way we have interpreted it as NEF is to say, when you actually recruit, whether be it your CAs, your engineers, it has to be a certain caliber of individuals. It has to be CAs who will be willing to actually go to the townships and rural economies, because there's no way you're going to drive, whether be it the Black Industrialist program or localization from our posh offices Pretoria or in Sentin. So I'm very proud, Program Director, to say that the NEF is a very small organization. We only have 140 employees who have actually done the remarkable things, because you can actually feel and touch the things that we have actually delivered on 140 employees with young investment professionals who will sit with you across the table, because there's nothing as exciting as talking to another highly qualified woman who will actually be in a position to assist you. So 60% of our employees, by the way, are women. So I'm encouraging the women who are sitting in the room here. Some of them are in the room. Zama, I saw you. You must stand so that the delegates can also interact with you. She's Zama. She's the previous president of the women CAs in South Africa, and she's actually employed. She's one of our executives. So that was the first thing. Second thing, Minister Pandu spoke about it. It talks to the whole regulatory environment we actually do this work. One of those critical pillars, Minister Pandu, that we need to look at going forward is the triple PFA, because the triple PFA is the constraint. It doesn't allow us to actually do the things that we'd like to do. For instance, I was looking for, we needed to actually get the services of an audit firm in South Africa. So we spoke to the National Treasury to say, can we say upfront, when you send the advert, we are looking for an auditing firm, can you say that we are looking for a firm that is owned by black women? And the answer was no. But I'm very lucky, I don't know how we did it, because the audit firm that we got is actually owned by black women in South Africa. So what it says is that we have to be very deliberate in our efforts in terms of what we want to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all our panelists for your insight, the robust discussions. We are mindful of time. That's where we leave it for now. Thank you so much. A round of applause, please, for our panelists as they make their way up the stage. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please may I now ask the Minister of Women, Children and Persons with Disabilities, Mrs. Maitengwana Mashabane, to make her way to the stage to introduce the President to us.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, you can do the whispers, it's okay. But this is your Wekona calling. Honorable President, co-chairs of Wekona, Mefuti Mtoba and Nambita, what can we ask for more? Honorable Ministers, led by my big sister, and ministers in the room, honorable members of Parliament, former and present and current. We have got a veteran in the room. Her name is Joan Fabs. We clapped for her yesterday because I thought she must do a cover, but I am uncovering her that because you're present, Mr. President. I've had a shrilling, screaming, calling on us there in Cape Town, and I'm sure she's pleased to see Wekona rising. This Wekona was launched by your good self, Mr. President, in the middle of COVID, in the middle of a crisis of all sorts. Women still found you accessible. I think we don't tell you this much, but this is what we sing, because you don't go to a corner. If you go to a corner, we follow you. And you don't say, hey, get away, this is my corner. That's where we form our corner. Nonetheless, I was in Kanyagude. Don't say for what reason. For the reason we are gathered here in the room, because we follow you even to, with Minister Naledi Pandor, to the AU. And you arrive there, you say, no, let's have a decision. That was 2020. That says this would be a decade of African women's financial and economic inclusion. That's why we are here. Now that you had said this and all African heads of states had embraced it, we have to become transformative. I was sitting in that chair yesterday. I know how difficult it is to still go back to His Excellency, not Ramaphosa, next door and other places, and say, remember this, we mean we want to transform in line with the decision that we had taken. We learn as we go. But we feel very proud that as you have come to us again, preferential procurement, a legislation that says 30% for the whole Africa, but for us, 40%, we had started. We are just asking that we transform faster. But in this room, because we're taking advantage of your presence, inclusivity must also be meaning we coordinate. We don't wait for the summit of Wakona. We coordinate in between and do the things that the panelists were saying we'll do. We are going or following you or coming with you to the second summit of gender-based violence and femicide. You know, every time we talk to men, I'm talking about the non-toxic ones, about how you simplify it and put it really simple and on the stoop. Women don't kill women. Women don't ask to be killed. Yesterday, because you were not here, I actually said women just need some more skills, because no man can say I can skill a woman to do the things we saw at Letaba, which we know women do every day. We wouldn't be in this room, all of us, if women had not put bravery and taken just few lessons from the older ones and deliver a human being. That's not a story. You'll hear them coming out and say, I'm a single parent, but she doesn't force the one who doesn't want to come along to say, I'm part of this. If you want, yes, but she will keep caring. We are moving towards 16 days of activism, not barehanded. We will take advantage, with your permission, to have an exhibition of Wakona. We'll take it to Nazareth so that talk about gender-based violence and femicide, we remember that we were trying to say, to listen to you clearly, that NSP pillar number 5 says let's not only complain about how women are beaten and so on and killed and so on, and how violence is overwhelming women and so on, but that we are not a department that is about advocacy, yes, but not only about how we should be calculating how many women were killed. No, how women can be allowed to do what women do best. Bring human beings to life, take care, and please open up inclusivity in the space where they can be able to do better. what they do every day to take care of their neighborhoods. These 16 days, we wanted it to be different because Wakona will have had an exhibition, and President, Your Excellency Ramaphosa, it's not every day where people you must lead must thank you. When we leave, we go look for more trouble. What else can we say he should do? But we work with you, we watch you doing things in action. We are not here for us, those who are not yet empowered, included, and have benefited from the transformation we are talking about. So let's carry on with the journey. South Africa is a young nation, but I listened to women who work internationally yesterday. Minister Pandor, you were not here. They said, "Babona Mutholo, more South Africa." On a nation that is not even 30 years old, championed in this room. People are feeling good about the good things you are doing, but they don't know that we haven't started. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's be seated, please. Program Director, Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Ms. Maite Nkwana Mashabane, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Dr. Naledi Pandor, co-chairs of the Women's Economic Assembly, Dr. Futhi Mtoba, and Namhla Mniki, country representative of the UN Women, Ms. Aletta Miller, ministers and deputy ministers, and women in business. And I'm looking at all these wonderful, beautiful women who are leading business. Thank you for having me here amongst you. And I also extend my greetings to leaders of industries, members of the diplomatic community, donors, partners, and friends. And I also extend my greetings to those who are delegates and guests. And it is indeed a great honor for me to once again be given this opportunity to be in your midst, having launched your inaugural Women's Economic Assembly, and to now be at the second one. When we convened the first assembly last year, we were in essence starting out together on a journey not only to improve the lives of South African women, but to fundamentally make a meaningful contribution in transforming our country. The economic empowerment of women is truly transformational, with far-reaching benefits for as well as the broader South African society. This second Women's Economic Assembly is about turning our words into action, and that is why I like the slogan here, a platform for deliberate action. It is about translating commitments that we have made into reality, and also turning promises into concrete action points, action projects or projects, but opportunities, and also creating jobs for the women of South Africa. It is essential to understand the context in which this Women's Economic Assembly is actually taking place. Next month, we will be convening the second Presidential Summit on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, where we will be taking stock of the process that we've been involved in implementing the National Strategic Plan to end gender-based violence. As we know, women's economic empowerment is pillar number 5 of the National Strategic Plan, and the Women's Economic Assembly is a key mandate of that plan. Therefore, the outcomes of this year's assembly will in many ways inform the assessment that we need to make on progress that we have made in fighting gender-based violence and femicide. This assembly is also taking place as we implement the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan that we adopted right in the midst of COVID to grow our economy, to support livelihoods, to create jobs, and to recover from the impact of COVID-19. And while the pandemic itself may be in abeyance, unemployment is not. The exclusion of women in playing a critical role in our economy is not in abeyance. As Minister Nkwada Mashabane said yesterday, the pandemic, its devastating impact on lives, jobs, and livelihoods will only be addressed as we increase the incidence of more jobs that are going to be created. And it continues to be women who bear the brunt of this devastating impact that COVID has had. We know that more women are unemployed than men. In the second quarter of 2022, 47% of South African women aged between 15 and 64 years were recorded as economically inactive. This means that almost half of the working age women in our country are not active as part of the labor force compared to 36% of their male counterparts. We know that most African women with jobs are employed essentially in low-skilled, low-paying, and insecure jobs, where they can be told at the drop of a hat that you are dismissed and we don't even care about your CCMA and all these other processes go now. That is how insecure their jobs are. We know that poverty is higher amongst women, and we continue to say the face of poverty in our country is the face of an African woman. It is therefore critical that this Women's Economic Assembly must produce outcomes that uplift, that empower and expand women's access to all levers of our economy. In 6 months, we will be marking 20 years since the passage of one of the most important pieces of legislation of our democratic history, the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act. The process of black economic empowerment cannot be separated from women's economic empowerment. the two are intricately linked, and they must be seen as such, and they must be implemented as such. We cannot transform the racial patterns of ownership of the economy without changing the gendered ownership patterns and control. That must be seen to go together. This is what the Women's Economic Assembly is all about, to change this. While we have made substantial progress since the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act was passed 2 decades ago, we must still have much more to do. We still have further to go. The work that lies ahead is to elevate the role and status of women within the economy in all sectors and at all levels. Women are refusing and must. You have to be in the center, and that is exactly where you belong. You have to be at the head of the boardroom table. Now, at yesterday's panel discussion, Minister Ndabeni Abrahams spoke about enterprise development being one of those areas in which we are falling seriously short when it comes to women-owned businesses. In some areas, we have been going backwards on issues like black management control and on giving more opportunities to black women for broadening empowerment. For this reason, as government, we introduced the target of 40% of public procurement for women-owned businesses. And even as we announced it, it startled a lot of people. They were rather taken aback by this. But it is the correct thing to do. It is absolutely the correct thing to do, because it is the women of our country who carry the heaviest burden when it comes to economic being held back, when it comes to economic inactivity. That is why the Women's Economic Assembly was convened for the first time last year, if you recall. It was convened to explore collaborative partnerships and programs that will make 40% preferential procurement from women-owned businesses a reality in both the public and the private sector. When it was convened, it was quite specific. It was initially to address precisely this issue, that how are we going to get black women to participate in a meaningful way in this opportunity that has been opened by government. This year's aim is to activate public and private sector supply value chains to advance women's economic empowerment. And it is quite pleasing, as this movement is now going on, to hear Mr. Dlamini saying that their company, Massmart, has embraced this, and it is forging ahead. And in the future, it is going to have more and more products and possibly services that are generated by black women-owned businesses on their shelves and in their business. For a Walmart, all the way from the United States, to come and say we will embrace this, it's a great achievement. And we want this to spread more and more amongst South African corporates. There have been reports since yesterday on the status of the pledges and the commitments made at the Women's Economic Assembly last year. It is pleasing to note the depth of commitment of our partners in the private sector to achieve gender transformation in their industries. At the Gender Lens Investment Summit held in July under the auspices of the Women's Economic Assembly, the Industrial Development Corporation committed 9 billion rand towards gender lens investing, and the Public Investment Corporation committed a whopping 12.5 billion rand. And that shows and demonstrates commitment. As the term implies, gender lens investing is an approach that considers gender-based factors across investment processes to advance gender equality and better inform investment decisions. Work is underway to establish a gender collaborative fund to provide earmarked support for women entrepreneurs ready to scale their own businesses. The automotive sector has already come on board, as we had in the panel discussion earlier. The Automotive Industry Transformation Fund has committed to allocate 30% of overall spend for advancing gender transformation in the industry. Now, this and many others would not have happened if you had sat in a corner and not said anything. Because as the saying goes, "Uzayithola kanjani mawuhlezi ekhoneni?" How will you ever get it if you are seated in a corner? Now, you, as the women of South Africa, decided that on all aspects that affect your lives, you will not sit in the corner, and in fact, you refuse to sit in a corner. And as far as I know you don't want to sit in a corner. You are up front. Now, of the 13 transformation businesses that are supported by the fund that I've been talking about in 2022, 8 have been women-owned. The automotive sector has highlighted its commitment towards meaningful capacity building to ensure that they establish a pipeline of women leaders and owners, including a dealership development program. This, in the end, is commendable work. The level of consciousness in the private sector is also rising. The agricultural sector has been a valued partner as well, committing to establishing a localized manufacturing infrastructure that will support women-owned businesses and build capacity as well as skills through training programs. The Women's Economic Assembly itself encourages a range of sectors to commit to procuring more from women-owned businesses. We expect that more announcements will be made in this regard as we move on. We have heard presentations on the various value chain opportunities for women-owned businesses in several industries. Indeed, building gender-responsive value chains is critical. It is critical to a resilient economy because no economy can grow or even begin to think of thriving so long as half of the population is excluded from it. Our goal in the end is to ensure that more and more commitments and pledges are made. And through this, we are raising the level of awareness, the level of consciousness, and as we do it here in our own, obviously want to see it rising and spreading throughout the continent as well. At the same time, for sustainability, we have to set and implement targets for gender transformation and the procurement of goods and services. We should not just leave it without setting clear targets, because without a target you cannot measure performance. As we look at these targets, we need to also strengthen the entire ecosystem of support for women-owned businesses. Our own country has far fewer women entrepreneurs than many other countries. That is something that we should accept. But we don't accept and do nothing about it. As government, we have trained nearly 6,000 women-owned businesses in essential business skills to qualify in tender processes, so that when the tender moment comes, they're able to participate with confidence and put forward their wares and their trades, so that they're then able to be considered positively. Our target is to train 10,000 women-owned businesses. We are committed to using the policy and legislative tools at our disposal, such as employment equity and the other laws that outlaw discrimination, to improve women's representation in executive leadership and address the gap. And I'd like to hear more and more women and women's organizations talk more and more about the gender pay gap, so that we can move more and more closer to eliminating and outlawing the gender pay gap, because it is hugely unfair. I am pleased that one of the topics under discussion has been how to leverage the opportunity presented by the African Continental Free Trade Area. Now, the AfCFTA is the singular and most important opportunity for growth and sustainability in industry for women and young people on the continent. Every effort must be made to ensure that this opportunity is explored and taken advantage of. And I do agree with one of the speakers who said we actually need to have either workshops, webinars or summits on how we take advantage of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area as South Africans, how we surge into the rest of the continent with manufactured goods here, as well as services that we can provide for the rest of the continent, and how we can outcompete Western countries that have colonized the continent and continue to colonize the continent with their goods and services that come from outside our continent. Now, through this free trade area, we are essentially saying we must unshackle ourselves from the Western countries that continue to flood our continent with their goods, and we must stand on our own feet and make our own goods and be able to trade amongst ourselves. And I must say that the continent is waiting. It's waiting for Africans themselves to begin that trading process, so that the goods that you make here in South Africa through women-led businesses must go into the shelves of the many shops and markets on our continent. And through that, we begin to unshackle ourselves as a continent economically. This is a future that is beckoning. This is a future that we must grasp. I do think that it would be useful to hold summits, conferences, so that we fully prepare ourselves as South Africans, but more importantly, women-owned and women-led and controlled businesses must grasp this opportunity. What we seek to do through the Women's Economic Assembly is to provide the platform for ongoing action and to encourage all partners to raise their ambition when it comes to empowering women and particularly women-owned businesses. The number of success stories that have been showcased here, which we were also hearing about here on the platform in the panel, do show that we are making a difference where it matters. But clearly, much more needs to be done. We need to be increasing the number of women entrepreneurs. We've now we're opening these doors. My sister Pilisile was saying the NEF has opened the door, and it's impressive that of the 12-point-something billion rand that they've given out for funding, she says 40% has gone to women-owned businesses. And I know that many of those have been able to trade so well, to do business so well, and their value has increased and they are able to pay back their loans, because that is one thing that women and women-owned businesses do very well. They pay back their money. Now, this is thanks to the partnerships also that are forged between the public and the private sectors. Our economy cannot thrive without the full and equal participation of women. And I'm rather pleased that this reality is dawning on many of us, that without the participation more fully of women, we will not be able to move forward. It is like a car that has 6 cylinders trying to drive at top speed with just 2 or 3 cylinders. It will never reach the top speed. So we must make sure that this, our South African economy engine, operates at with all its cylinders. That is why the work of the Women's Economic Assembly is of crucial importance and value. And through what we started last year, we have started something that is just going to keep on gaining momentum. And our task is to harness it, to broaden it, to bring more and more women in to participate. And I congratulate the private sector leaders who have taken this agenda seriously. Our approach has been to work in collaboration with the private sector to ensure that your businesses succeed and thrive, while at the same time you contribute to the transformation of our country. It is encouraging to see excellent results that are coming through. We hope that this will serve to encourage other sectors to also become involved. To women in business present here today, I'd like to thank you for having the faith in our economy. And I also want to thank you for continuing to urge us in government. And may you never tire. Where you see us weakening, where you see us not meeting the objectives or the promises that we have articulated, we encourage you to keep raising it with us. Raise it with us so that we are able to get to where you want us to go, to be encouraged to keep going on despite this sometimes difficult environment that you may come across. It is always the fate of groundbreakers to deal with systemic challenges. If you are a first mover, you will always meet challenges. And if you are breaking ground and if you are a pioneer, there will always be challenges. And we say, never, never lose your courage and never tire. You are the hope for the coming generations. You are supposed to be the role model for the young women and the young girls who must see you succeed. And it is you who, as you rise, you must bring others along. You must bring others along. And that is an important factor that you should not ever forget. I often hear sometimes, and it was also said here, that sometimes when other women succeed, they forget about others. I believe less in that. I believe more in the love of women broadly. All of us who were brought up by women, and we were all brought up by women, those women who brought us up carried all of us up. They were our mothers, they carried all of us up. So it is inherent in a woman to carry those that she has around them along. It is the young women that we must also be great symbols of, but also bring them up. Because you are the hope of the coming generation, particularly of young business leaders, you must therefore ensure that you achieve and you reach very high levels of achievements despite the challenges and the difficulties. I wish to thank all who have been involved in making this year's Women's Economic Assembly a success and congratulate you on a job well done. When we started, we thought, oh, maybe it will succeed, it may not. But I believe this year we have attracted many, many more participants. And this is how it is going to be as we go on. Next year, I'd like to see more and more participants also in this room. Let us use this momentum, not just to set the tone, but to substantially and decisively advance women's empowerment or economic empowerment. Let us make the empowerment of women the main issue that is talked about throughout the country, in businesses, in boardrooms, and all that, so that whenever any private company, even a state-owned enterprise, talks about either partnering with a business, they must talk about partnering with women-led and women-owned and women-controlled businesses. How beautiful that will be. And I think we can spread that message so that every business asks itself, do we have women-owned, women-led, women-controlled businesses as our partners? And it should not just be Mickey Mouse type of work that they are given. They must be given substantial partnership jobs or partnership participation so that they too must rise as they raise others as well. Thank you very much.
Wondering where's the best place for you to be comfortable while we... Yes, please. Thank you. We can be seated. The work of transforming the economy and empowering women, as discussed and spoken about by President, would not be possible without the collaboration of stakeholders and very generous donations. Business leaders are now going to come up and share how they're going to be contributing to the cause. Please may I ask that when you come up, you keep your speech very short and hopefully your donations very long. President Cyril Ramaphosa will be on stage to interact and hear about the donations that people are making. I'm going to read out the list of people who are going to come on stage to make their pledges. Please can I ask that you make your way there. You'll come up, have a very brief speech. If you see me moving towards you at any point, you know that you need to be done. And then you will interact with the President as you make your way off stage that way. The pledges are as follows. Miss Mary Ann Parr from You Can Grow. Ntandokazi Kapa from the Salga Women's Commission Chairperson. Please may I ask that you're making your way to the stage as well as this, calling out your names. Mr. Mikhail Mabasa, who's from NAMSA. Claire Reed from Real Gardening. Mr. Eustace Mashimbe from Proudlist SA. Mr. Letta Miller, the UN Women Representative of SAMCO. Sean Goldsmith from the Franchising Association of South Africa. Joan Marie Fubs from the South African Farmers Development Association. And Ms. Ntutu Mutseha, who is a beef farmer. Please may I ask that you now begin to make your way to the stage, say your pledge, interact with the President. I wonder if I should... There's a microphone there available for you.
Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Marianne Parr. I'm from You Can Grow Africa. So we're an organisation that is developing contract farming programs inclusive of small and medium farmers. Just this year, we've just contracted 300 tonnes of dried capsicum, so paprika and chili, of which 90% has been new generation farmers, 60% has been women, and it's been done for Crown National and Bid Foods Group. And really, this is the beginning of what we're going to commit to for this next 5-year program, where we're looking to localize $1 billion of product that's currently being imported into South Africa. With the backing of Unilever and the rest of the food and retail South Africa, we're going to be able to create a business-led food security program that will transform our country as we go along. And it's all inclusive of small and medium farmers and the new generation farmers.
Good day, President, ministers and deputy ministers, and all the ladies that are here. You look stunning, let me just tell you. My name is Ntandokazi.
I told them, they didn't believe me.
My name is Ntandokazi Chapa. I represent SALGA. SALGA is a South African Local Government Association. It's an association that represents all municipalities in the country. So each municipality is a member municipality of our organization. And when we established SALGA, we also established what is called the Women's Commission, the one that is responsible for women now within the SALGA organization. So I'm the chairperson of that, recently elected, fully knowing that this is our new term that started in November last year. Ours is to come in to say, we always argue that each and every business, each and every project happen within a municipal space at a ward level. Therefore, we are a strategic partner. So we are raising our hand, say we are requesting a date with Bikona. We are available to support you so that we are able to assist. But we also want to tell you that you must know that when South Africans go out and vote, in the last elections, 58% was women who went out to vote. So it is very important that you know you are the leaders. That's why you went out and vote while your counterparts were busy watching TV, watching soccer. You were out there to vote. So you must take your space. President, I also want to say, we always say in government, function must follow, money must follow function. But when it comes to this, it is important, therefore, it must follow the voter. The finances and the people must follow the voter. If women are the voters, therefore it is important, therefore, that whatever we do as government, we prioritize, and all the major resources must be allocated for women. Thank you very much.
Hello, Mr. President. We first met 11 years ago now when you were the chairman of the SAB Foundation.
I was much younger.
My very small business then was the inaugural winner of the South African Breweries Innovation Awards. You very, very graciously awarded me the winning check. I have come leaps and bounds since then, and have developed what is now a complete garden in a box that feeds a family of 4 for an entire year. Wow, I hope that's what it said. The garden in a box costs 450 Rand and feeds a family for an entire year. Over the last 18 months, thank you. Over the last 18 months, we have rolled out 41,000 of these boxes nationally. we are now seeing that these households are using their 16 square meters to now not only feed themselves with only 16 square meters and 2 liters of water a day, but they are now starting to expand their gardens, and from 16 square meters, they are now starting to aggregate and start to produce 5,000 rands worth of income from 16 square meters. That is how powerful the agricultural sector is. So what I am pledging as my now growing small business is to put more manufacturing capability into my workforce and to enable myself to make 21,000 of these household garden boxes available monthly. I am needing to call on every one of the people in this room to enable us to get those 21,000 boxes into more hands of people in this country. Because if we have 21,000 households making 5,000 rands a month income, that enables us to produce 10 million tons of food in this world, in this country. The income at a household level is phenomenal. That's what I'm calling on this world, on this room to do. Thank you.
Now I must get your details again. Make sure I get them. Wonderful.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, I'm not Alita Miller, as you can see. I'm representing UN Women.
Yes.
She's been called by the Deputy Secretary General, who's in the country, as you may know.
Yes.
So for UN Women, I think our support is always continuous. WICONA was birthed actually from National Strategic Plan Pillar 5. And I think we just have to also just go back there in terms of where this was birthed and to the many volunteers who volunteer on the 6 pillars for the National Strategic Plan. Part of Pillar 5 was the economic power in terms of how do we make sure that women are really empowered in terms of what makes sense, in terms of continuing with the National Strategic Plan. So our support has always been there when WICONA was birthed. So we know how it was birthed, we've been in discussions. This is just to pledge that we'll continue with that. And I don't know if we have our Buy From Women platform. We keep saying we must buy from women, we must buy from women. UN Women has developed a Buy From Women with about 5,000 women-owned businesses across South Africa on the platform itself. So what we're saying to the business leaders is, whenever you're looking for a woman, it's there. Yes, the central supply. I'm nervous. I'm speaking to the president. Yes, the central supply database is there, but sometimes it's just go to a platform where the women are housed. We have this platform in 7 countries globally, so it's not something that doesn't work. We've seen it. It's in Rwanda, it's in Senegal, it's in Puerto Rico. It's where it can happen. It's a $6 million platform with already some women there, and we're hoping that we can onboard a lot of women there so that the industry can easily find those women, their profiles, what they do, and just give them businesses. So for us, the support is to give this platform to WICONA so that it doesn't sit with us, because it's aligned with the procurement issues. So I hope the commitment makes sense. But thank you.
More than sense.
Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Michael Mabasa. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of NAMSA, the Automotive Business Council in South Africa. Mr. President, we are very proud to announce that for the first time in the history of the continent of Africa, South Africa is hosting the South African Auto Week from the 26th up until the 28th of this month. We have more than 39 countries that are coming to South Africa. Most of those countries are also bringing investors with them in the automotive sector. I can confirm, Mr. President, that NAMSA got an opportunity to present on behalf of WICONA at our CEO Council, where all the 49 CEOs of the sector are represented. And after her presentation, there was a very clear instruction that we need to invite WeCorner to the SA Auto Week so that our women can be able to come and interact very directly with all these investors that are coming to South Africa on the 26th so that we can be able to focus on opportunities that exist in order for us to be able to make sure. Because as you know, Mr. President, the automotive industry is moving into the electro-mobility space. And we also argue that the future of the industry is going to change faster in the next 10 years because of this evolution into electromobility. So there is a new economy that is coming, and we want our women to participate very actively in that particular economy. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, hi there. My name is Sean Goldsmith, and firstly, I'd just like to say thank you so much for launching all of this because, as we know, it's not just the responsibility of women to support women and enable women. So thank you firstly for that. I'm part of the Foundation of Franchising for Africa. We're actually a great supporter and a humble of FASA, which is the South African Franchise Association. But what we have been doing, we've been involved in international franchising for a long time, and I know that you are also a supporter of franchising. And what I'm very pleased to announce is that we've got at least 5 big major brands, one of which works very closely with Walmart, who are pledging to come to South Africa specifically to help enable women in Africa to actually get into entrepreneurship because of the support and because of all the structure behind it. We know that we're going to be more successful by helping people with that support structure of franchising. So I just wanted to thank you again, and what a wonderful event.
Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Eustace Mashimbe, and I'm the CEO of Proudly South African. We're a buy local campaign, and what we seek to do is to encourage anyone who makes a purchasing decision to choose locally made products whenever they buy. In fact, our belief, Mr. President, is that in your efforts of driving economic recovery, it's the only thing that we all have within our arsenal that can help us, make a contribution. Whenever you make purchasing decisions, we appeal to people to buy local because that way, you're contributing to businesses. Therefore, as part of our pledge, the commitment we've made is to continue with our programs that are tailor-made for supporting women-owned businesses. And this includes what we've done in the past, where we've created access to market programs in partnership with the private sector. And in fact, a good example is the Franchise Association, where we took more than 15 black women-owned businesses to go pitch to buyers in the franchise space because it's difficult to access that space for buyers. We have focused on labor-intensive sectors such as the clothing, textile, footwear, and leather. Women-owned wine brands, Mr. President, to access platforms where they can sell their wines, including franchises, including restaurants, hotels, as well as getting shelf space at retail. We took more than 23 businesses to the DSTV Delicious Festival, where they all sold out. Mr. President, and this is a platform that enables them to access consumers that they're looking for. We have our own flagship, the Buy Local Expo, where we invite hundreds of buyers to come and find businesses. And in the main, the companies that showcase at that platform are women-owned businesses. And so our pledge is to continue to drive all of those programs to ensure that as we find platforms, especially access to market programs, that they favor women-owned businesses, especially the labor-intensive sectors that we know employ a lot of women. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director, for inviting me to the stage. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I do see a few gentlemen here, and it's great to get your support. Thank you. Pakama Imbakodo Pakama, all protocol absorbed. Warm greetings and sweet ones from the sugar industry. I am very excited to stand here for a change and not to be saying this is the most untransformed industry in the country. I don't have to say that any longer. The sugar industry is busy transforming, and women are rightfully, in this male-dominated industry, beginning to take center stage. One of the biggest milling companies, Tongaat Hewlett, has also contributed by enabling women to become a force to be reckoned with. But I'd like to just mention three, because we don't have time for more. And they all happen to be in KwaZulu, because as you know, where is the sugar industry? It's in KZN and in Mpumalanga. But these three women, Nantlantla Gumedi Shabalala, a farm owner, Zibu Makanya, a farm manager, and Nosisa Dube, a farm assistant, have done great things in the sugar industry. They are role models to young women coming into the industry. And what SASA has done, the South African Sugar Association, in a committee called STIC, but it actually stands for the Sugar Transformation Implementation Fund, we have allocated 9.8 million to what is called the Women Enterprise Development Transformation Intervention. And I know that is too little, but they say start, even if you have to start small, make a start. And this is just a start. So this money will be divided to all women sugarcane farmers. And I think that is great. Yes, being a politician one time, I can never stop.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and insight. No, not a problem at all. So we just have one other person who's also going to make their way to the stage, Lizzie Mohale from Nedbank. They have a big announcement for a minute. As I said, if you see me standing closer to you, it's time to wrap up. Thank you. So you can go ahead.
We are the Women in Agribusiness Development Agency. We are here to grow prosperity and inclusivity of women in South Africa's agribusiness. And we are proud to announce our Women in the Beef Value Chain initiative. We are driving our success through a feedlot custom feeding aggregator model in partnership with the Agricultural Research Council. This groundbreaking initiative is consistent with President Ramaphosa's inclusive economic drive and in line with Minister Didiza's recently signed Agricultural Master Plan. As WADA, we would like to thank all attendees here at Wicona, and we would like to invite you all to partner with us in empowering and growing the success of South African women in agribusiness.
Mr. President, I'll just put it on high level. That initiative, in partnership with the partners that you've seen there, which is Agricultural Research Council under a Center of Excellence program, we are going to pilot the project with 10 women. We have access to the capacity to the ARC feedlot, which has a capacity of 750 animals standing. So as WADA, we've organized for each participant to be part of the incubation program, where we'll be providing them with 30 bonsmares each participant, and that is just the beginning. So this is the value chain that I was talking about. We have access to the ARC abattoir, the processing plant. We are in talks with Pick and Pay, informal sector in the form of braai masters in the township economy. We are starting piloting in Tembisa, which has a population of plus minus 8 million participants. So each township will have its braai master by young women and young men. So for us, this is how Women Economic Assembly has taught us to look at the entire value chain with a specific focus on what will benefit, on what will implement the 40% public procurement. But in addition to that, again, in your capacity as a farmer, I want now to pledge your enterprise development plan, and we're not coming with a begging hand. We want to leverage on your buying power as a farmer. On your buying power, when we buy our winners, when we buy our feed, when we buy our veterinary services, We will come with our money, Mr. President, but we will want to leverage on your buying power as we import some of the animals from Namibia. But in 3 years to come, you shall have seen a huge reduction of the animals that are being imported from Namibia, being produced by women. And this will produce agro-dealers and agropreneurs in each and every activity of the value chain. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Macherabo Debo President, my name is Liza Magali from Nedbank. As Nedbank, as a bank that is purpose-driven, our purpose is to be financial experts who do good. And we do agree that equality for women is progress for all. As the sponsors for this year, we are committing that in addition to driving women executive development, in addition to driving procurement to women-led and women-owned businesses, we will support Wekona next year to make sure, we will sponsor it to make sure that this program is talking about deliberate actions. We came this year to see what's happening. We liked what we see. We liked the actions that this forum is driving towards, and we will sponsor it to make sure that we impact more women and we drive inclusivity.
I like you too. Oh, wonderful. This is a real good commitment.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your patience. We are nearly wrapping up. I'd like to please ask Dr. Futhi Mtoba, the co-chair of Wekona, to come and give a vote of thanks.
Wow, can we give a round of applause for that sponsor from Nedbank? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, co-chair, we are sorted. Where's Jackie? We are sorted, yes. Thank you to the Green Bank. Your Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, ministers and MECs, mayors present, director generals of the departments across national and provincial present, to my co-chair Namhla, you rock, captains and captainesses, as Minister Pando has referred to the industry leaders, to members of the Women Economic Assembly, to all our guests here and those watching us online, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Wow, this has certainly been an exciting 24 hours. The interactions, the commitments, the sharing of practices, success stories and commitments by our partners has been truly an elevated welcome, and it also elevated Wekona to new heights. Mr. President, before I move to my primary task here today, I wanted to take advantage of your presence to share with you a few thoughts of the co-chairs. So when we launched Wekona in Assembly exactly a year ago, which you called it a platform to action an enabling procurement environment of women businesses by activating the private sector, supply value chains to a coherent and collaborative approach to achieve women economic empowerment. So yesterday,
morning in this room, we had many women and progressive men who work tirelessly to ensure that South Africa has a transformed, inclusive, and growing economy. I said it before, and I wish to reaffirm it to you today. We are surrounded by leading change agents and enablers reshaping the representation of women and men in sectors. We have in this room advocates for change and online, of course, committed to implementing effective actions towards women participation in the industry value chain. History has taught us that unequal and untransformed economies are most vulnerable to shocks. So we are faced at the moment with unprecedented times of uncertainty and complexities in the world, and also that it's increasingly interconnected in ways that exposes all of us to high levels of risk. So yesterday I spoke to these challenges and our collective commitment to ending gender-based violence and femicide and driving Pillar 5 on the National Strategic Plan on gender-based violence to grow participation of women in the economy is the way to ensure a resilient economy to all these shocks. I would like to then first start by thanking back to my job that I was asked to do today. I will go and thank the Department of International Relations and Cooperation for hosting this important event. Your hospitality, ma'am, has surpassed our expectations. Minister Pando, thank you. I want to thank the speakers, the panelists, the partners who spent days sharing their insights and valuable experiences with us. There are too many and too dynamic, I can't name them, but you know yourselves, thank you. I want to also thank Ministers Ndabeni Abrahams, our Minister for her leadership, Ongwana Mashabane, and Minister Zulu for taking time out of their business schedule to be with us yesterday, and particularly for Minister in the Department of Women, our department, for really leading us throughout this process. We thank you so much, Minister. So also want to thank the Director Generals, as I've said, industry leaders and partners who are also here today. And we thank the presenters today, the business leaders that were here, coming to confirm again. We love you so much, because we will always say, where's the money? It needs to go to women. Mr. President, putting an event like this takes 100 hours from a team that is dedicated and honestly and quite insanely hardworking individuals. I want to thank the team behind this event for their dedication and support. We came up to this point 2 days before the event without money. Yes, Mr. President, I have to say this. So can you stand up? They are all dressed nicely. Sugumam, Jackie, where are you guys? Are you sleeping? I think they could be, because they spend... Where are they? Jackie, please come up. Come, guys. Come. Okay, you are on your way. Please, you must be seen, honestly, because this was just a tremendous amount of work that you did. I mean, this really involved logging. Come up, come up, please come up. Come. Koche, where are you? Come, Koche. We were logging on it. There is load shedding. We had to anticipate when are we calling each other. The calls were last starting at 8:30 in the evening, and they would go until cross midnight, trying to put together this. So, please. Thank you. Thank you so much. Nedbank has sorted you all. You had that. No more worrying about money. Thank you, yes. Thank you. No, you can remain standing whilst I finish.